These are experiments so cruel, so unthinkably grotesque, they sound like fiction. But sadly, they really happened. Let's start with the bad and slowly work our way towards the stuff of nightmares. Number 10. The Philadelphia Prison Experiment. During the 1960s, Holmesburg Prison was more like a macabre laboratory than a correctional facility. The inmates, guinea pigs for dermatological tests, led by Dr. Albert Klickman. The so-called studies were for commercial products, perfumes, lotions, even skin blistering agents to simulate battlefield burns. Klickman once described the sea of prisoners as a farmer sees his fertile field ready to harvest. If you were unlucky enough to be locked up here, you might have had your skin deliberately burned, scarred, and poisoned, all for a few measly dollars. Number 9. Japan's Forced Frostbite Trials. The bitter cold of Unit 731's Manchurian camp made winter a time for gruesome experiments. Prisoners were left outside in sub-zero temperatures, their hands and feet dunked in ice-cold water until they were practically frozen solid. The goal? Test the effects of hypothermia. Prisoners would then have their frostbitten limbs bashed with sticks to assess the damage. Once their fingers shattered like ice chips, they dunked the mangled remains in hot water to see if it could reverse the damage. Spoiler, it didn't. Number 8. The Human Experiments of Black Dolphin Prison. This Russian penal colony is notorious for its ruthless conditions. But behind those cold stone walls, unofficial reports suggest there's more than just hard labor. Prisoners have claimed they were subjected to mysterious medical procedures and psychiatric studies. What exactly went on behind those locked doors? No one knows for sure. But if you came out different, if you came out at all, no one was going to listen to a prisoner's word over the states. Number 7. Project MKUltra's prison experiments. If you thought the CIA's mind control program was confined to secret government labs, think again. Between the 1950s and 1960s, the CIA expanded their LSD-fueled experiments into American prisons. Inmates at places like Lexington, Kentucky, were dosed with high levels of hallucinogens, often without their knowledge. The goal? To see if they could be brainwashed into confessing secrets, or perhaps to simply see what happens when you turn a human mind inside out. Turns out, it's not pretty. Number 6. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study Prison Recruitment. The infamous Tuskegee study targeted impoverished African-American men, but they didn't stop there. When recruitment numbers started to wane, they turned to prisons, exploiting the incarcerated as easy targets. Infected men were promised medical treatment they would never receive. Instead, they were left to suffer the full course of syphilis, untreated, just so researchers could observe the slow, painful deterioration of the human body. Number 5. The Smoke Room. Tortures of Abu Ghraib. What happens when power goes unchecked in a war zone? At Iraq's Abu Ghraib prison, U.S. soldiers conducted their own experiments. Inmates were thrown into sealed rooms, filled with smoke, deprived of sleep, and blasted with ear-splitting noise. The goal was psychological collapse, breaking the human spirit to see just how far one could push a mind before it shattered. Most of these stories never made the headlines, and those that did, buried in classified files. Number 4. Poison gas chambers of Soviet gulags. Stalin's purges didn't stop at executions. Deep in the frozen wastelands of Siberia, certain gulag camps had gas chambers where prisoners were exposed to toxic gases. The excuse was testing new chemical agents. Victims were made to inhale various gases, only to be observed as they writhed, coughed up blood, and slowly succumbed to asphyxiation. All in the name of national security, of course. Number 3. Chinese organ harvesting prisons. This one might still be happening today. Reports have surfaced for years about political prisoners in China being subjected to forced organ harvesting. Rumors claim certain inmates, particularly members of banned religious groups, were killed on demand to supply a black market of organs. Imagine being dragged into surgery, only to realize that your life is about to be auctioned off piece by piece. Number 2. Nazi vivisection at Ravensbrück. The Nazis left no stone unturned in their pursuit of medical breakthroughs, and female prisoners at Ravensbrück concentration camp bore the brunt of it. Without anesthesia, limbs were sliced open, muscles torn, and bones shattered. Why? To mimic battlefield injuries and research the best ways to treat them. The victims were left maimed, infected, and often died slowly from gangrene. Number 1. Unit 731's live dissection experiments. The apex of human cruelty came in the form of Unit 731's vivisection labs. Chinese and Russian prisoners were cut open alive, their organs removed without anesthesia, all while doctors jotted down their observations. They weren't even allowed to scream, having their vocal cords severed first. The goal? To study how much a human body can take before it finally gives out. If hell had a research wing, this would be it. And that concludes our descent into the darkest corners of human experimentation. If you're still here, maybe it's worth reflecting on just how far humans will go in the name of science. Maybe they were just deathly curious.